nervous about them looking ahead. We all thought everybody thinks there's potential. Trap game. We lost ECU in a trap game. On the road, hostile environment, and UCF pulled out the dub. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. What a game. It is midnight. It is now Sunday. The clocks are going to come back, so I wonder when we're recording this pod. I don't know if we get this far, but we get an extra hour, so that's going to help, Nick, because we usually don't get an extra hour. Usually we're going to bed pretty late, but big win for UCF. Crazy kind of college football day, I'll be honest. But what's most important is UCF got the ranking next to their name. They have a big matchup next week, and they didn't let this game kind of slip away at many times. And Memphis really hung in there. But how you doing? And give your quick initial thoughts on this game.
I'm definitely excited that the clocks are rolling back tonight for this one, because this was as you kind of alluded to there, this was a wild college football day. It's a wild sports day in general. I mean, we had the Georgia route. We had Clemson going down. We had Alabama go down. We had a World Series champion crowned. For those of you who enjoy soccer, we had a thrilling MLS Cup. We had so many different things going on. And in the middle of that, we had a 3:30 UCF versus Memphis. UCF ranked for, I think, the first time since 2018 in the college football playoff polls. And I think a lot of people were scared that ranking was going to go away. In this one, nobody's going to tell you that UCF played a clean game, because it was far from it. But with that being said, going on the road against a conference opponent in a stadium where last time you played them here, you lost against them. You mentioned it there a little bit, potentially looking ahead to what has become now the biggest game on your schedule against Tulane. I've seen UCF lose this game before on the road. I have. And I thought the first quarter, it kind of had that vibe again, like, oh, God, here we go again. Here we go again. It was after that first drive where Mikey got sacked, I think, like 2 or 3 times in a row. And I'm like, oh, here we go. This is the road woes coming back again. But UCF made enough plays, and we'll get into it both offensively and defensively. But I think that's my initial thoughts, is this is a game that I've seen UCF teams lose before. And I think I was very impressed that they were able to pull this out, because in a day of mayhem of college football, all you need to do is win. Just win and move on. And UCF was able to do that tonight.
100%. And we'll get into all of it in just a little bit, because there is a lot to get to. But first, as always, guys, we want to say a huge thank you to BetOnline. Basketball is back, guys, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events, whether that's college football, NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. Guys, that's BLEAV to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. And if you bet with BetOnline, on the previous episode, me and Rob told you to take that spread minus 3.5 UCF, and it covered. It covered. Realistically, Memphis scored later in the game, but it kind of, Nick, on the last pod, I said that my view of how the game went almost came to fruition. I said I thought it was going to be a 34-20 ball game. I said pretty much going into the fourth, it's going to be a one-score game. It's going to be a tight-knit game, because we know, and you know, right? Like, UCF on the road can be a completely different team. It's like night and day sometimes. That's been the Achilles heel of the Knights for the past however many seasons. And I said, I think in the fourth quarter, they can pull it off. And when we recorded the pod, and really up until the game, we had no idea who the starter was going to be. We assumed it was going to be Mikey Keene, but we had no idea. There was rumblings that JRP was going to play and that fans were going to be upset. And then a lot of people were saying, yeah, Mikey's going to start. So for you said it in the first quarter. Again, it was one of those, okay, we're playing Memphis. It's a close-knit game. No, we go down, score right away. Then, per usual with our defense this year, they go down and score on their opening possession. But UCF, I don't know, Nick, and I think we just need to talk through it with the offense because there's some questions, that need to be answered going into next week, especially. And me and you, I think, don't think there's many questions. But once you make that decision, you can't really go back, right? And Mikey Keene, we both said on the pod, right? We think Mikey should start. After that performance against Cincy, go with the hot hand, ride the hot hand, came in against a ranked opponent, and really, besides the 2 turnovers, which both of them weren't his fault, they're fumbles, he played outstanding. And Nick, I'm going to be honest tonight, besides the one interception, which, I think he'd like to have that one back, he played a outstanding game. 219 for 3 touchdowns, only missed 6 passes. And he was just accurate. Threw the ball all over the field, everywhere you could do it. But just talk on Mikey's performance. And honestly, I know me and you both believe Mikey should play next week, but kind of give your thoughts on, why he should over JRP and kind of just his performance today. Because I think him throwing the ball, he looks 10 times better than he did last year. And he still looked pretty good last year.
Yeah, I thought it was overall a clean performance from Mikey Keene. He wants the pick back, no doubt about it. But for a while there, he was sitting on just one incompletion, and it was that pick. And give credit to the UCF defense for helping him out there and getting the turnover on that pick. So it really kind of they offset each other. So you live with that, right? And outside of that, I don't think he really made any mistakes. When you go 22 for 28, you take that any day of the week. Maybe the yardage wasn't there, but he was kind of taking what Memphis was giving him. And I thought when they got in the red area, which only happened twice, he made 2 very good throws for touchdowns. That's what he needed to do. I thought the best throw he made in the game was by far the one late in the game to make it, I think, 35-21 was the Kobe Hudson. That was a special throw. And that's something that last year you kind of could see the growth. He really struggled throwing down the field last year. We saw that a lot. And in this little sample size so far, 6 quarters of football, I've seen enough that lets me know that he really has improved as a passer. There's a lot more zip on his throws, which we talked about last week. He throws it with conviction, right? He's not second guessing. And even using his legs a little bit. He ain't John Rice Plumlee. Not many guys are. I really don't want him to be John Rice Plumlee, to be honest with you. But I think more often than not, what you're going to get with Mikey Keene is that assurance that he's going to play a clean football game. And I think that's all you really need because as we talked about, this is an offense that on any given day can score over 500 yards of offense. That's what they average right now, a top 5 offense in college football. A little bit under that today. But again, you're taking what the defense gives you. It's on the road, all those things. But I think on most days, you just need to protect the football and you'll be fine more often than not. And I think Mikey Keene gives you a better shot of doing that than John Rice Plumlee. And to me, I know Gus Malzahn is tied to the hip of John Rice Plumlee. Maybe John Rice could have played today. He dressed, obviously. I know he didn't really practice much or if at all, so I understand that. I just think, I know it's only 6 quarters of football, and we talked about being prisoner of the moment. I've seen so many UCF quarterbacks come back and lose a game like this before. The fact that he was able to play well, the offense was able to score 35, I think that's enough for me. I'm sold enough right now to say, going to our biggest game of the season, there's no need to make a change right now. There is zero need to make a change. Keep the continuity. I don't like the flip-flopping because what happens if you go into Tulane and John Rice is overwhelmed? And then you got to put in Mikey Keene like that all cold. And I'm not a fan of flip-flopping. I think this is the guy right now. And you kind of have to, this is lightning in a bottle in my opinion. And hey, when you got a running game like that, by the way, that was emerging, that helps your quarterback as well. So I think Mikey Keene to me needs to be the starter. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind on that.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. Watching the game today, the poise, credit to offensive line again. They've had 2 straight good weeks, keeping that pocket clean. And he really had a lot of time. There's only a couple instances where he had to get out of the pocket. He got sacked, I think, twice, and you alluded to it on that one possession where we had to punt. But there was a couple times he got out of the pocket, ran for great yardage, threw the ball away. But that's what we like to see out of the quarterback. And again, there's no disrespect to John Rice. I mean, again, man's won you games, many games this season, but I think there's a clear-cut difference between the two. And yes, JRP gives you that extra element in the run game, right? You have to account for his running ability and, him being able to pass. But the accuracy, Nick, and I think we've talked about it several times over the however many weeks we've been doing this podcast, right? The accuracy, you can tell. Like, I think Gus isn't stupid. I mean, I think he clearly knew, okay, we've got a really accurate quarterback that can't really move too much. And then a quarterback that is less accurate but can do more with the football. I think, of course, in Gus's offense, we've said that is the quarterback he wants. But with the weapons you have and getting your weapons the ball, maybe taking away the fact that your quarterback can go run for 60 yards a game isn't the worst thing in the world, because now you have guys like Hudson, like O'Keefe. And then, like you alluded to, the running game's been great all year, but yeah, they're not having to worry about the quarterback running out. But you can't load the box, because if you then load the box, you're leaving one-on-one matchups with the receivers. So I don't know. I think the throws he was making tonight were just so crisp and spot on, and they were gorgeous throws, and all of them were pretty much the back of the end zone. I mean, the one back left to Javon Baker was exceptional.
Yeah,
I mean, only throws. Where Javon could, he could only get it. The Kobe Hudson, both touchdowns, the double move on Kobe, that was phenomenal. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to ride the hot hand, especially against a team like Tulane, who I watched their game today. Just getting ready. It was an early kickoff against Tulsa. Thank God we don't have to see Tulsa this year. But it scares me. Their defense scares me. And I think especially with JRP being out for now a week and a half, you don't want to thrust him into that situation at all.
We'll definitely get more into the Tulane on the preview pod this week, but kind of watching more of them play. This is, again, one of those games that I'll tell you I'm worried about, because, there's a lot of people saying, well, this isn't the old UCF team. We can't sit here and act like they're just more talented than everybody. And, the facts are the facts, right? They are more talented than these teams. But, Tulane right now, you want to talk about hot, they're hot. And, they're just at the point right now where they're just stacking up wins. It's really not all that difficult for them. So maybe game day this week in Tulane.
I'm fine talking about game day now. I'm fine. We'll talk about it at the end of the pod. I'm fine talking about game day now since we won. Memphis fans didn't love the last pod. They didn't like what we had to say. It's okay. I mean,
listen, I can
only give so much credit to Memphis. I did.
I don't know what else to tell people. UCF I'll just say it again, and I don't know if this is a controversial take or what. UCF, with all the talent that they have assembled, okay, there's no reason why they shouldn't be 9-0. Okay, I love 7-2. They're ranked. The conference is still for the taking. The New York Six is still for the taking. Right? That's all great. I'm just saying, UCF probably should be a 9-0 football team based on the talent that they have. I'm not saying that talent always wins out. We always know that's not the case. But I'm just saying they are more talented than every team on their schedule, in my opinion. End of story.
Well, that was my opinion last week. I said that. I said, on paper, UCF has more talent than everybody in the American. Now, if they play up to their potential, that's a different story. Let's talk about that running game, Nick, that you alluded to. We've been pounding the RJ Harvey train, and the last 2 weeks, outstanding. I mean, you go ahead and you speak. I know he had that one, he hit the gap perfectly on the zone read, and he just ran it very far. The touchdown run, though, I mean, that was big boy big boy football right there for sure.
Yeah, this is the one part where it's not a criticism of Gus Malzahn by any means, but did we have to get this far into the season before we could tell you that RJ Harvey was running back one? I mean, did we have
Yeah.
to? I mean, today we almost saw an even split, right? Bowser got 15 carries, RJ got 17 carries. And what did they both do with it? Bowser goes his 15 for 67, which I feel like I've seen that stat line of his over and over and over, right? But RJ Harvey, a 61-yard run, 151 total. I mean, just his impact everywhere. We saw it also, not as much in this game, but we saw it in the Cincinnati game, his value as a receiver as well in open space. He's a complete package. He's a complete package. I mean, UCF's lucky to have three really good running backs, but he's a star. He's a star. And in this game, he was definitely unstoppable. I thought UCF could have honestly kept going more to the run at times in this game. And I mean, just prove until they could stop it, just keep going. I thought they could have done that at times. But that's if I had one criticism of Gus Malzahn this year, I think maybe waiting too long to get RJ Harvey involved from the jump from a little bit.
Yeah.
But we've seen the roles change. I mean, Johnny Richardson's not getting the ball as much. Bowser, when he gets in there, is definitely situational, as we saw like on the Wildcat play, which we were texting back and forth, by the way, on that Wildcat play. It's very creative. And it's like you mentioned, I mean, you still had 6 yards to go, I think. It should have been obvious to the defense, like, hey, they're probably going to do something weird here. But the thing is, they run that play so much, and they do it from they don't just do it from like a yard out or two out. They've done it from back there before, and it works because that's something that Bowser's really good at for whatever reason is the Wildcat. So it keeps them honest, and he gets that play call. So I thought that was great by Gus, but whatever it is, we got RJ Harvey now, and I think he's completely the X factor to this offense at the moment.
Oh, I mean, he's just so hard to stop because he brings the brute force, right? Like he's hard to tackle, but he also has that elusive speed where he can get out of a big group of people and break one for 50. So, we said it last week. I really just love how they are using the backs now, right? Like I think early in the season it was more so like, oh, we're gonna force Bowser, we're gonna force hand him the ball because of what he did last season. I like Bowser. I know there's critiques. We've critiqued him all season, but it's not necessarily his fault. It's more so for this offense specifically, RJ Harvey just works better. Not saying Bowser doesn't work great. The times that we use Bowser the last 2 weeks have been perfect play calls.
He's a good change of pace guy. Yeah, he's a good change of pace guy.
Exactly. You're in the red zone, give him the football. And yeah, when I was seeing it, thank God it was the play call it was, because I was like, no, Gus. I listen, I get it works. 6 yards is a little much for me. Okay, like they're assuming you're going to do that. So right when I saw that it was that play, I'm like, okay. Stephen Martin gets a touchdown. Great play call by Gus. And I think early in the game that was beneficial. You solidified the run. Mikey was accurate. And you kind of had the feeling, Nick, it was just going to be one of those games where if the defense doesn't make the stops, the offense is going to be able to move the ball, especially through the air. So yeah, I agree with you though. I think we could have run the ball more in certain situations, but Mikey was just so deadly accurate, and they couldn't defend our receivers at all. Like they were getting separation, they were getting open. And let's talk about those receivers. I mean, you really had another kind of three-headed horse in a way. Hudson, O'Keefe, and Baker, they've been your guys. But let's talk about Kobe Hudson. I mean, he's really just come on. We talked about it before the pod and kind of looked at his stats over the last however many games. And, he had a rough start. Maybe not his fault, maybe injuries, no speculation. But the last 4 or 5 weeks, Nick, he's just like, he's come on in a big way, and he's become, you can't really give a number one target with this team, but he's become, the guy that was advertised coming into UCF for sure.
Again, it's one of the good things about the transfer portal. You can transform one side of the ball completely in one cycle in the transfer portal. And who are the guys we're talking about? I mean, it's been Javon Baker has been really good this year. When the offense was rolling at the beginning, we were talking about JRP, and we were kind of just waiting on Kobe Hudson, who you mentioned, a slow start, didn't play the first couple games, but he's continued to get better and better and better and better, and the numbers look better every single week to the point. I mean, he's almost averaging 20 yards a catch. That's outstanding. That's got to be near the top of the conference, I'd imagine. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I got to imagine that's near the top. I mean, you'll take that any day of the week. And you mentioned it seems like every time he gets it, it just always he's very dependable. And again, this is the importance of bringing in guys that have played high level college football. For whatever Auburn is, whatever they're going through last year, he was still the leading receiver on Auburn, on an SEC program. I mean, you don't do that at a team like that, at that program, in that conference, if you can't play. So,
No.
Again, and the same thing goes for Javon Baker, which was just crowded Alabama. But Kobe Hudson definitely, I mean, the three-headed monster, and you talk about how do you replace a guy like Jalen Robinson? It's like that name I feel like we haven't even brought up at all, like the loss of it, because we're really not even feeling it. And
No.
I mean, Ryan O'Keefe has stepped into that number one role, I think, well. Maybe not the more down the field that we've seen in recent years, but he's still very dependable, right? And they use him in many creative different ways. But I always thought that going in, you look at that on paper, that was going to be a strength. And now that they're all healthy as they probably have been so far, all three of them together, I think, again, that's another big reason why this offense is humming.
Yeah, they're hitting their stride at the right time. I mean, there's not a lot of drop balls. They're getting open. They're getting separation. And even when they're not getting separation, they're catching balls in tight windows. It's good to see, though, too. I mean, Javon Baker, Alabama did lose. And, these guys have chips on their shoulder. Kobe Hudson, when Brian Harsin got fired, he sent out a tweet like, wouldn't change a thing or whatever. And Javon Baker put out a tweet basically to Alabama saying like, y'all could use me right now. And then he said in a tweet, I would make this decision over again because I'm having so much fun with this team. So it's good to see those guys that do come over in the transfer portal. And listen, transfer portal is not perfect. I mean, you might have a guy that transfers over to a new school, doesn't get any playing time and hates his situation. But teams like UCF and Gus just have a really good locker room with a lot of great guys that love playing with each other. And it doesn't matter who's getting the ball. It doesn't matter who's getting the tutties. It matters if they're getting the W, which is huge because you could have a lot of egos, especially with the UCF team.
Yeah, and by the way, all the talent we just mentioned, and throw Kamori Gamble in there, by the way, too, another guy who did it at Florida, and I don't think has been a part of the offense as much as I thought he was going to be. But all that talent, and who made the big play today?
Holler, baby.
Alec Holler.
Holler hop.
He made the play.
Holler hop.
I mean, holler hop. Holler hop. You just wanted it more. I mean, that play to me epitomized a turning point in this program, at least, of those are plays that they have not made in the past few years. I'll just put it that way. Those are plays they have not made. That game, there was still 3 timeouts left for Memphis, right? 35-28. Crowd was starting to boil a little bit. Their defense played really well those first two plays of that drive, right? And it's just a very nothing play for Alec Holler, who is very he's Alec Holler. I don't know what you say about him. He's just kind of there, right? And he gets enough blockers in front of him, but he still makes the play on his own. And the fact that he goes for that hop, the Holler hop, as you said, and just gets it by a half yard. I mean, those are winning football plays. If you're going to go in on the road in the conference at this point in the season, first week in November, where it's always madness and you're going to win, you need plays like that. And I don't want to say that play changed the game because UCF was in front, but it definitely stopped the game from changing because that game was turning for a second there until that play.
I think it took the life. It took the breath out of Memphis. You could see it was 3rd and 9. They were genuinely, you could tell, they just put up a touchdown. There was 3 minutes left. You don't get that. You're punting the ball away to a Memphis offense who, credit all the Memphis. It was a tough game for UCF. There was no easy going for this Knights team. Memphis really came to play, but we knew that. I mean, we said it on the preview. They could be a 6-2 football team right now. Like, at the end of the day, you could be 7-1. Like, you lost by 10 to I'm blanking. Tulane. Sorry. Lost by 10 to Tulane, but you were down 35-0, came back to make it 38-28. I mean, 28-3 in points. That's insane. Had the 4 overtime loss to ECU. The loss to Houston, the heartbreaker with Houston. And then this one, you kind of always felt like UCF had an upper hand, but there were game-changing points in the game. But Memphis is a tough football team. And we said that. Like, they have running back, wide receiver by committee, and their defense is the only problem. And I think that was shown today. Mikey Keene threw the ball over the field. Offensive line played great. Running backs, wide receivers. It was just outstanding on the offense and really didn't have many drives where you were stalled. There was only a couple instances in the third quarter where you felt maybe momentum shift. But all around great offense, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see who's the starter. We both think it should be Mikey. I'm assuming many UCF fans believe it also should be Mikey. But at the end of the day, whoever's going to win the game is what we care about. If JRP's in there and wins, that's all we care about as fans. But Nick, let's go to the defense. There's a lot to talk about here. I first want, so let's talk about the momentum changer a little bit. I have this play marked down because I think ultimately it was a big play. And I think a lot of Memphis fans, I'm not even going to say rightfully so because I said it was targeting. The targeting call on their tight end, you could kind of tell. I think it was 21-21. They were driving the ball down the field. I mean, defense couldn't stop them. I understand where some Memphis fans are coming from in the sense it's very rare in a play like that for a offensive player to get called for targeting. There is also a lot to say that maybe if John Baptiste didn't get concussed and drop, do they even call targeting? I would agree with fans, and I would say no, that probably that call does not get made if Jean Baptiste is on the floor for as long as he was. But couple things, and I want to get your take on it. Number one, it 100% was targeting. It 150% what he lowered the helmet to the neck area. It 100% was targeting. And for any Memphis fan that wants to complain and say that is such a BS call, you're wrong. That was targeting. He lowered the helmet. And I get it's rare in an offense because the defensive player is usually the one coming at trying to make a tackle like that. It was targeting. Big momentum shifter. I just want your thoughts on that. And how big was that for UCF, especially in that sense, where the momentum was kind of shifting to Memphis at that time. But big targeting call kind of puts them in a 2nd 19, and then the stupid 4th and 16 go for on Memphis's part.
Yeah, the targeting stuff, I mean, it's the same way in college. It's the same way with the NFL. There's too much gray area, right? I saw plays in other games today that I thought were clearly targeting, and they weren't called. I see plays that are called targeting, and I go, really? I mean, in this scenario,
it seems like it almost seems like the player has to literally be concussed for them to even review a target.
But Jeremiah John Baptiste, Jeremiah John Baptiste going down and staying down for a little bit. I think in the moment, a referee is always going to probably err on the side of caution. He's always going to err on the side of, I'm going to throw the penalty. And I think that's what happens. And of course, I understand Memphis fans are upset about it, but in football, you make your own breaks. You make your own break. It's football. I mean, right or wrong, it's football. It happens. There's going to be good calls. There's going to be bad calls. And you got to respond after that. And I don't think Memphis responded well to that play. I don't. I mean, momentum clearly shifted back into UCF's favor. I have no idea why Ryan Silverfield is going for it on 4th and long like that. I for the life of me can't get an answer. I think common sense tells you, okay, you're a little too far to kick a field goal. Just go ahead and punt one and try to get down inside the 10 and make UCF go 90 yards. Right? I mean, is that
I watched his press conference after, and he explained it in the sense that he said they are an average team when it comes to putting teams within the 10. So his view was that it was going to go in the end zone, and they were on UCF's 39. So his view was, you're probably a little the field goal kicker who is he hadn't had a miss up until today.
I mean, let's
one of the better
for sake of keeping it neutral here. I mean, Gus Malzahn decided to attempt to. He decided to send.
I have an answer for that one too.
I know there's an answer to that one too.
Yes,
but in the moment though, he did. It was like, "What are you doing, Gus?" It was like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, I mean, I was sitting on the couch and I'm watching. I'm like, "We're not going for this, right? We're not actually kicking this field goal."
He was not boomer
and then he
on
kicked
that
it,
one.
and I'm like, no.
Which, by the way,
we didn't boom.
I understand like 64 is a long way, but like, was that even good from 50? I don't barely even landed into the end zone.
I don't think Boomer expected it. No, it landed at like the 3. Like it didn't even get anywhere close. But I don't even think because it wasn't supposed to get hyped.
Give us the explanation for those who hadn't heard it yet.
Which explanation? There's 2 explanations to 2 idiotic plays. Do you want the Memphis explanation or do you want the UCF
I heard the Memphis one, but give me the Gus one.
Okay, so you have the Memphis one, 39. You have to beat UCF, and 4th and 16. They figured go for it. UCF, Gus said they weren't supposed to hike it. It was supposed to draw them off sides, and if they didn't draw them off sides, they were going to take the 5-yard penalty, get a little extra room, punt it. So that the explanation. It was not supposed to get hiked, and Gus said it took years off of his life when it did get hiked. It took years off of mine, and probably years off yours, because we're thinking, okay, we're not going for this 4th and 1. Just punt it to them or give it back to them. They don't have a lot of time. We'll go into the half good, and then they kick the field goal, and I'm like, oh, and then of course they bring it to like the 50, and I'm like, this is where the downfall happens. They're going to kick a field goal to end the half. Then they get the ball. That's where my mind went. So, two crazy plays, especially the Memphis one, the 4th and 16. I'm like, I don't know why they're going for this. And it was a good explanation, but I still don't like. I get it. You're going up against UCF, mind games. They're like, it's UCF. We have to score points, but still not a great decision. So that was the momentum shifter. I'll be honest, Nick. 2 big takeaways from this game. Number 1, or I think a couple more. Red zone defense is still legit. I mean, you had the number 7 red zone offense going up against the number 1 red zone defense. And I think we could both agree that pretty much all day today, the red zone defense was elite. I think they only allowed maybe 2 touchdowns in the red zone. Most, or maybe more than that, but they stopped 3 red zone scores. So
they were 4-7 in the red area.
There you go. So I mean, impressive by the defense. That's tough to do, especially against an offense like this who has had so much success. But other than that, I think it's the same. It's the same defense, but when you get to play a team like Tulane next week, right? And I know we're now kind of shifting our mindset. You can't let a team throw for as many yards, run for as many yards. Now, they kind of stopped the run in the second half. I don't have the number on the second half rushing attempt or rushing yards, but they had over 100 and something in the first half. So they kind of shut down the running in the second half, but they started throwing the ball more. And credit to the defense. They stuck in there. They held tight. They made plays when they needed to, which has been the mantra of the defense all year. But it doesn't lie. I'm not going to lie. It doesn't worry me for the weeks coming up in the sense that you can't let a team get into the red zone 7 times. You just can't.
No, and you got to get off the damn field. You have got to get off the field. 9 of 14 on 3rd down. And this is kind of a theme in these sort of games. I mean, we saw the East Carolina, which was the worst defensive performance by far this year by UCF. And I thought this was I thought this was close, honestly. I did not like this defensive performance. I mean, there's really nothing they didn't get home to the quarterback, right? There were times where maybe they got pressures and, give him credit. He was able to move out into the pocket and kind of make plays with his feet a little bit or throw it away, whatever, find open guys. Like the flats were open. The flats were open in this game a lot, So I understand that, but it just last week was such an inspired performance, I thought, defensively. And and I understand it's at home, it's a little different, but none of that translated here. Like, I mean, if you're going to ask me for a defensive standout, I can't find one. I really can't. Even the ones that I'm used to like saying, yeah, they played really well, like Salazar or Tremont Morris-Brash. Obviously, I'm not picking anybody on that line because nobody got home. I mean, even Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste before the concussion or he got knocked out, he missed a tackle right in the middle of the field to that big tight end and allowed him to run for 25 yards after. And it was kind of just piss poor technique, really. So I don't think it was his greatest game there. And I don't think Devad Wilson, despite the fact that he got the pick, was that great either in the back end. And we had penalties. I mean, Brandon Adams, multiple penalties. He had a rough day today. So again, it was not complimentary football whatsoever, I thought, in this one. And but they made the plays when they needed to. You win the turnover battle. You won the turnover battle. And honestly, that was the deciding factor, especially the one in the red zone, because it's a completely different game, obviously, if they score there.
No, yeah, and I think that's the frustrating thing. I mean, Memphis had more total yards than us on offense. They put up 433 yards of offense on this defense. And we can give credit, and we do, like, to stop them 3 times in the red zone, to hold them to no points is impressive. I mean, that is hard to do in college football, especially when they're in the red area and you're thinking they can easily kick up a field goal, right? A missed field goal, then to turnovers, that's great. But with that being said, 6 penalties for 66 yards, like you mentioned. Brandon Adams was very bad today. Made up for it in the second half. He made some good plays, but the PIs were just all over the field.
And unnecessary.
And some of them didn't need to be.
What was the one it was later in the game? And again, my memory is so clouded right now from the play. But I mean, the throw was it was not even a catchable pass. And
was it on Devad Wilson, the bad hit?
Yeah. There you go. I mean, it's not even a catchable pass. There's no need. There's just zero need.
That was the more frustrating thing for me, was some of those balls where the PIs were happening, no way they were getting caught. Like, no way. I forgot, I think it was a good defensive play on Justin Hodges. It was in the third quarter. Probably a small play. I don't know if a lot of UCF fans will think about it, but we were just getting so many PIs that every time the ball would get thrown up, I'm like, please just stay back. Please do not grab. Just let him go. And Justin Hodges made a great play on some receiver going up the right sideline. Didn't touch him, boxed him out, overthrown ball. And I feel like it would have been a lot of more overthrown balls if we just keep our hands off. Now, if you get beat, you get beat. But yeah, corners did not play good today at all. And that's including the safety play. Like Devad Wilson, like you said, you kind of just felt like, you made bad mistakes. The one drive, I think it was in the second quarter. The one drive, they marched down the field for it was 70 yards. And 40, 50 of the yards were on our penalties, which we cleaned it up after that. But 6 for 66, I mean, can't do that next week. Because if you do something like that next week where you're just giving them free plays, I mean, you lose the game when you walk into the stadium. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But, yeah, so let's talk about injuries, Nick. 3 big ones. 3 big injuries that hopefully, when we're talking about next week, they are not on the injured list. We've talked about these guys, Devad Wilson, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, and Quadric Bullard, who I don't know when he went out, but I don't know if he's going to play. He was in a boot on crutches walking off the field. So I don't know if that's just precautions or if it's, I would assume if you're in a boot or if you're in a knee brace, and you're with crutches, that it's probably something serious. Wilson and Baptiste, they both got knocked out with concussions. John Rice was cleared for this game after a concussion. How big? Now, obviously, I can assume how big, but those are two of your defensive leaders, right, Nick? So if those guys don't play against Tulane next week, what we can talk about UCF's chances, but do you think this defense will be able to replace those guys for a top 20 matchup next week?
I don't think they can replace Jeremiah John Baptiste. For whatever, I don't think he played that great in this game before the injury. He has been arguably your MVP on that side of the ball, and he is your team captain. And he's in the middle of that defense, and there's a reason why UCF has been very stout in that part of the field this year, and it's because of him, right? And I know Jason Johnson usually steps up in his absence, and we've seen that earlier this year when Jean Baptiste didn't play. But this is a completely different opponent, and you need him out there in a road game, somebody with experience that's been there a few seasons now. So I think he's probably the one that you can't withstand. I think they're probably they got more depth on the back end, I think, that I would trust more so in that linebacker position. But so we'll see what happens there with Newt. Obviously, the Quadric Bullard, the same thing. I didn't really see what happened there. It was just kind of, he's out. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But I think Jean Baptiste is definitely the most important one. But also, I mean, he's the one that got knocked out of the game. So it's going to be the hardest for him to get back. So we have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, both Devad and Baptiste had towels on their heads, which usually indicated, they got knocked out with a concussion. So hopefully they can play next week, because they're going to be, again, I watched the Tulane game, and they've got speed. They've got speed all over the field. And, when you're playing a team like Memphis, which, no disrespect, I said they're very talented, but they don't have anywhere near the speed that Tulane does. And Hennigan was getting free. I mean, a lot of the receivers were getting free. So it should be interesting. Hopefully we get them back. Hopefully they can clear protocol, but obviously whatever's best for the interest of them and their health and well-being is what we want the most. So ultimately, if they have to sit out, next man up, step up, and Cam Moore can come in. He's been getting a lot more reps. And then safety-wise, Kobe Perry would probably take over for Wilson. But all in all, Cardiac Knights did not disappoint. They came through, they pulled through, and quickly, before we leave, Nick, I mean, I've got the game day shirt behind me, right? New Orleans, Louisiana, potential game day spot, top 20 matchup, most likely. I think UCF. Now, this is coming out on Monday, so the rankings will be out. Or do the college football rankings get released Tuesday, I think? This week?
It's going to be Tuesday, every Tuesday.
Okay.
And I was actually gonna point that out. I don't know if you were going to as well, that they got a lot of help on the rankings this week, based on what we saw. NC State beat Wake Forest, so Wake Forest will likely drop out.
Yeah.
Syracuse lost to Pitt; they're dropping out. Oklahoma State got the brakes beat off of them by Kansas; they're likely dropping off. Illinois got defeated by the worst team in that side of the Big Ten in Michigan State. They're probably not going to fall out, but they're going to drop for sure. So, and Kansas State lost as well. So they got a lot of help on the teams in front of them. So maybe an outside shot to move up maybe 4 to 5 spots. Maybe.
I think at least 20. I think at least.
Maybe.
I think the real question is, Nick, will we be in New Orleans?
It's a maybe. It's a maybe. It's a good thought put out there by, I think it was Rob who put it out there about us heading up there. I've never been on one of these like road trip type things, so I'm definitely interested. New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans before. So
Same.
Everybody says it's a fun town. Take a little Tulane takeover. I don't know how much of a home field advantage there is in there. We haven't really done our research yet on everything Tulane, but I'm
Mhm.
not familiar with some kind of big home field advantage. Maybe an opportunity for a lot of UCF fans to travel. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Stay
Yeah,
tuned.
Charge on podcast travels to New Orleans for the game.
And if they lose, then
I
probably no podcast.
Yeah, if we lose, we just take the day off or a couple days off.
No. You do it when they win. You do it when they lose. You know how it rolls.
Yeah. Well, you guys will find out on Thursday if ultimately we decided to go. But I think there's a pretty good chance we go. I mean, there's not many games that you could say for your school that are a top 25 matchup. Game days going to it,
Yep.
and basically your chance to pretty much win the conference. No shade, no offense to Navy or USF, but you win this game, you're going to a conference title. That's most likely what would happen. But everything is up. Next week's your biggest game on the schedule. I mean, next week's your season. I mean, if you win, your destiny is decided. You lose, you better hope Cincy loses in the final week. But Nick, any final thoughts to close out UCF's big dub in Memphis?
Yeah, like I've said, this is a game where they did not play perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But at this point in the season, I'm not looking for style points. I'm really not. I think UCF has racked up plenty of those. I just need you to grind out victories and keep putting W's together. And I think they're doing that, obviously, with a little bit of a quarterback transition. RJ Harvey, in his case, getting more touches into the offense. Kobe Hudson getting more acclimated into the offense. A lot of newness going on around here. Keep styling win, or just keep piling up wins, rather. And Tulane next week. Can't wait for it.
Thank you, as always, for being so great as a co-host. Make sure you guys tune in to our Tulane preview pod. Potential special guests. We've got a great week coming up. I mean, we could potentially go into the game, and we have great guests to come on the show, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much, so much for tuning in to Charge On. We really appreciate all the support, and your nights, our nights, are hitting their stride, and we might have some fun. We might have a good couple months here being UCF fans, so we'll see. We will see. Thank you for supporting Charge On. We really appreciate it. This has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. Go Knights, Charge On. We will see you on Thursday. We will see you on Thursday.